We appreciate you guys coming out. We got a perfect day for it to share the exciting project that we have behind us that has been years and years, about 6 years, in fact, in the making, from the genesis of this, from community feedback, robust community feedback about what the vision could be here, and access to the waterfront, all of those things that have now been talked about for years. And so very exciting week this week, of course, with Saturday being the public event at 9 a.m. For all of that to come to fruition. I'd be remiss to not thank all of those people from 2018 to 2024, and we'll talk more about it on Saturday, but our Parks and Rec, Brad in engineering, our Public Works, Amy in Public Works, and again, many hours and many years. I know George is here from Biggs, who's he's pulling double duty. He's working and here at the same time. You hear the equipment in the background as they continue to work on phase 2. This is my first time actually getting to walk through here, and it certainly is beautiful and a really cool moment because of again being part of so many years of talking about this and seeing it come to fruition. So we will have the official ribbon cutting at 9. We thank you, media, for being here. We've and wanted to give you guys a sneak preview to walk around. I know we'll be able to give you some access, and Jason will cover that with you afterwards from different spots in here that if you'd like to get some photos or get some video. A couple facts. This phase 1 that will open Saturday was a $6.6 million project funded through CRA. Phase 2, which is under construction to the west here, is a $4 million project. So that was through a series of CRA funding sources. If you know anything about Bruce Beach and its history, that was a very important topic since the beginning, since Scape came in and designed this. Started with lots of community feedback, not only from the tenured neighborhood, but from people who used this pool, that grew up going to this pool when this was a segregated pool and waterfront. And so how we commemorate what was here and what that meant to the people who lived in the city of Pensacola in a very difficult time in our city. And you'll see that commemoration. I know Councilwoman Broughton's been very involved in that, and Scape has been very involved in that since the beginning. So as you guys walk around, you'll see some of that commemoration, I know, and that will continue in both phases of the park. Obviously, when we talk about access to the water and we talk about downtown, and some, there's been reports and stories, we talk about water quality and the importance of that. So wanted to give you an update on that. We've been working with the Department of Health and Escambia County to test for bacteria at Bruce Beach since October of 2021. I know some of that has been covered. And I've talked about since I've become mayor in 2022. This stretch of beach behind us has been found comparable to other public access areas along the bay going back to October of 2021, and approximately 75% of that testing is within safe guidelines. September of 2022, we collaborated with FDEP and ECUA to conduct extensive genetic testing in the downtown area, and results here showed that bacteria was not of human origin, but avian origin. So, and then lastly, we did some testing yet again before this opening on April 8th at 19 different locations in and around Bruce Beach, and the results didn't indicate any significant bacteriological sources to correct. So we wanted, just because we had tested a couple years ago and we had tested last year, we're opening this park. And if you look into how this park has been designed to be utilized, it's not necessarily as a swimming park as it pertains to the access to the waterfront, but as you'll see in phase 1 and phase 2, this is more of a outdoor kayak type of usage as it pertains to the water. Nonetheless, we continue to test water, and that is important to us. And so we were certainly encouraged by not only having some testing that had good indicators in it, but we were doing more expensive specific testing with the Department of Health to ensure that everything looked good. So glad to have gotten those results on Friday. So also moving ahead, the Pensacola Perdido Bay Estuary Program, Matt Posner and his team has secured funding to conduct wide-scale microbial source tracking, for which the Bruce Beach watershed is included, and that's set to begin this fall. So, so we've been testing previously. We'll continue to do so because not only do we want a beautiful park that everybody uses and enjoys, but we want to make it safe and continue to make sure that we're on top of that. So, so that testing will continue. A few other things, and then I'll take your questions. Updates for the network security incident. Letters from TransUnion are in the mail. I know I got mine. There's been a little confusion. It is TransUnion that is providing the credit monitoring services for everyone. The letter says Cyber Scout. It's just an ancillary, name company of TransUnion. So that is the same thing. It's just a brand that they have. There's a helpline for people who have questions. That number is 833-543-2815. And that's open Monday through Friday, excluding holidays from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. For any questions that you may have. And internally, we're transitioning to post-incident checks, which means our day-to-day operations have, in essence, been restored. I know we just got phone service, back at sanitation at the airport as well. So we still have a few small, minor details, but in terms of day-to-day operations and customer-facing day-to-day operations, we're almost back at the full 100%. There's been some reports about the letter I've sent to TSA, and I want to be clear that I typically am not much of a knee-jerk reaction. We have one bad day or one bad week at the security lines, and that we send letters or overreact emotionally about something that is a hindrance to us and our economic development. But I think a year is long enough, and we had a rough year last year, with I believe 16 times we were on TSA's own watch list of things taking too long. We've been on it 4 times, or maybe it was 12 last year, 4 times this year already, including a couple of those days we were on twice in one day. And again, that's not by our measurement, that's by their measurement. And again, the airport is a huge asset to us, not just getting people in and out of here conveniently, but for economic development. Tourism, 93% of our ocean economy in this area is tied to tourism. And how 26% of those people get here is by plane, and that's growing every day. So, that's one of those situations where I'm leaning on Congressman Gates and Senator Rubio, Senator Scott, and others to help us out. We had 4 new pieces of security equipment. If you go there now, we have 4 lines. We willingly took on that inconvenience for those lines to be installed last year. And that caused some delays. They're up and they need to be running. And the last time I was in line, there was 1 line running with 4 and a line that wrapped all the way around to our offices for our staff. And I know that that's not a unique thing, and people are starting to see that. So, at the end of the day, we were a little discouraged with the federal support and not getting any of the federal money from the terminal grant program this year. That being said, if our airport, and it's being now at double its capacity of the way it was constructed, is not deserving as a high priority item in terms of the new terminal federally, then what I would argue that then helping us in security, helping us get people through an undersized airport should also be paramount. You can't have both ways. So my expectation is, and we notified them we would be sending this letter. We're not trying to, we understand staffing is difficult. I've owned a business. We're operating a city. Staffing can be difficult right now in this time. So I'm not underestimating the challenge that TSA likely has. But clearly we are becoming a consistent problem, and this is going to start affecting us. I was sent an email from someone who had booked a flight with one of our carriers, where it said people are missing their flights and you really need to get there early. That's not the advertisement we're looking for. That airlines are seeing so many people miss flights at our airport that they have to start notifying above us to make sure that the people are there on time. So obviously you saw everything, all the data points we mentioned in the letter. We'll do anything we can to work collaboratively to make sure that we have a better experience for the people who are using our airport at a record pace. some good news. I'm happy to hear and appreciate Allison and her team getting at the Lakeview Center, the central receiving opened on Monday morning for Baker Acts and those types of things. That is an important service for our police department. I know for our sheriff's department. So I'm very encouraged to hear that. We've been emailing back and forth. I'm going to try to get a tour scheduled over there personally, and probably in May or June once. But they just got it up and going. And we received an email from them. So the goal is to be able to complete that evaluation and transfer someone in 10 minutes. Right now, it could be hours where that's tying up some of our police resources on that handoff. So that's something that may not get a lot of headlines, but that is a vital part of our public safety that's now up and running. So very excited for that, appreciative of all the supporters of Lakeview that have helped make sure that they were in that position to get that open. And then lastly, construction has started on the sidewalks. I gave you a lot of addresses last time. I'll say it more succinctly. Around O.J. Semmes Elementary so all of the sidewalks. We put some in recently around Cordova Park School where we had kids having to walk in the street in the car line. Now we're working on that right now at O.J. Semmes. So that construction began yesterday, and we expect it to take about 60 days, weather permitting. So that is everything that I've got for today, and happy to take your questions. No, I know our team is in regular conversation. It has been really for years with Peter and the federal folks. I saw that report the first time you guys did, and frankly don't have enough information or to give an analysis or speculate as to what that means or doesn't mean. What I can say is I feel confident that the team that we've got in terms of what we control here at the local level, that we continue to be in communication with them, and what happens and needs to happen, and how the analysis that's happening at the federal level of how dollars should be spent and all that isn't necessarily in the city's purview. I think the most important thing is that we continue to stay in communication with them, which we have. And I've been part of several of those conversations since I've been mayor, and I know my team back there has been in many more of those conversations. So what I can tell the citizen is that as information comes in, as decisions come in that are made at the local level in this project, which are not as many as that are made at the federal level, that we're on top of it, and that we continue to provide them anything that they need. So I'll have to look further into, and to be honest with you, whatever it really says is very little of that's going to be controlled at the local level. That's going to probably be an analysis or a process change is going to probably be something that would happen at the federal level.
Can you talk a little bit about just what it means to be opening this park, and also why you decided to open it just phase one, phase two?
Yeah, sure. So a couple things. It's of special. I mentioned to you guys before. It's of special importance to me because if you recall, Quint Studer, who deserves a lot of credit for us being here today, paid about $500,000, if I remember correct, of his own money to do a waterfront activation plan for the city, not for his property or private property, but for citywide. And I think Mayor Robbins, if I remember correct, threw in some money to include Sanders Beach in that. And so my job at the time was to be the liaison of all of this community feedback that would happen. And Scape did a really good job of that. I believe we had over 350 people twice at Sanders Beach, and they were very intentional about not just having an event, a pop-up at noon on a Saturday somewhere, but being very intentional about getting into the neighborhoods, finding the people who used to swim here, who their parents and grandparents came here. So it's great to open this with the confidence to know that there was robust community feedback and what was going to happen here. And I got to be kind of part of it on both sides. It was my everyday job for those several months for that waterfront activation study to come through. They picked two catalytic projects. One was hashtag, one was Bruce Beach. And then we continued that work until they were done at Scape. So that was a big part of my life, actually, in 2018, 2019. And then flash forward to today, all the great work that's been done between then and now by folks that are here, by departments at the city, by our construction partners, our design partners, all made this happen. And so it's an exciting day, and especially rewarding because this is work that I was a small part of 6 years ago, and now we're standing here with something complete. As far as phase one versus phase two, I mean, ultimately, Biggs Construction is a huge part to thank. Brad, Public Works, Parks and Rec, all made the adjustment. We didn't want to open phase one without a restroom here. They made that adjustment so we could make that happen, and the decision really lied in the delta between when phase one and phase two was going to be complete. If it was only a couple of months, maybe we would have just, from a seamless transaction type of thing, we may have just waited. But I mean, look at the weather today, and I imagine it'll be similar on Saturday. And to have this open as a mini for kids, for parents and grandparents who put a lot of value and memories into this area, to have that open for 6 months, 7 months before phase two, I think will be a big asset for us. So once we were able to get the infrastructure in place that we needed to make sure we were comfortable with it, and we knew that the delta was going to be that long, that let's go ahead and get this amenity into the hands of the citizens. So I'm excited for it.
Come Saturday, what are some of the amenities that people will be able to take advantage of, and then what can we see in phase two?
Yeah, so really, George and David and the team will be even more well versed on every line item of what will be available, especially on the phase two side. But the playground behind us, what you'll see a lot of some of the commemorative landmarks and markings of the history that's here, and you get the pedestrian bridge to the east, and that's why we've been. What's really important about that is from a parking standpoint. Phase two, there's going to be some parking on the west side, but obviously that's limited right now. So that was part of our decision-making process as well, is to make sure that we didn't just open half of the park and it not be accessible for people can get here. So the pedestrian bridge it will be open, and then the easternmost part of the entire project, there is access to the beach, as you guys will see when you go down there. So it won't be the entirety, of course. All the frontage will come in once phase two is done, but there'll be some access to the bay itself at the southernmost point down there in phase one. Phase two, I know it's probably the wrong term. I keep calling it a ramble, but kind of the hill, the elevation that you see behind us will be, one of the amenities that people will be able to interact with and use and play on. And I know that will expand our ability for kayak launch, and some things like that will be a little bit easier in terms of the parking over there. But I'll let after this, when you guys talk with George or David or folks on our team, they can give you some even greater detail. But for the most part, at least in some form, pretty much every asset that's along this park in some fashion will be open in phase one.
Mayor, can I ask you just in general, this park is another. You had Community Maritime Park, formal industrial site that got transformed into a community park, and now Bruce Beach. This used to be a boat yard in the 19th century, and kind of a landfill and a pool here and all this. Is this a transformation of the city's waterfront? Is this what the next 100 years of Pensacola's waterfront will be like?
I think so. What we just asked our citizens last year, in the Haas Center Resident Satisfaction Survey, and we gave 8 or 10 different things. What do you want to see? We're doing that in a much more robust way now with the citywide strategic plan. We'll get even more detail, but we just asked the general question, what's important to you as a citizen who lives here? And access to the waterfront was number one. And so obviously this park has been in planning a long time. Maritime has been around a long time. But if Maritime's any indication in the catalytic impact that had on our downtown, on the vibrancy of our downtown, the young people wanting to move back here, I'm one of those. When I left in 2011, I wasn't sure I was coming back, but when I decided to come back in 2015, it was because I had seen, something where, man, I could really see myself living here and seeing myself maybe not in a different way than when I left 4 years before that. So I am one of those people that I'm back here now because not because I thought I was going to run for mayor one day. It's because this was a cool town, and so if Maritime's any indication, and what we know the impact financially, economic development, vibrancy, talent attraction, all those things that it has been a catalyst for. I think this has the same type of potential positive impact. It's just that much more access to the waterfront that our citizens are saying is their number one amenity that they want to see. Understand we have an entire hardscaped waterfront here. So everything is a seawall because of the history you mentioned. This was a port town, a timber town, and that's where we had ships coming in and out. And so what's behind us is the only sand on accessible sand, in essence, on Pensacola Bay. I mean, and you've got Sanders Beach that's got a little bit of a boat launch, but in terms of human interaction with the water, this is the only piece left. And so to preserve that and to make it the amenity that it is, I think is a great reward for us. And I expect that this project will continue to compound that positive impact of access to the water.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Do you envision having ultimately concessions over here at this park? Food and beverage, kayak rentals, things like that?
Sure. It's funny you mentioned that. I've talked about, and I don't mean just here. I mean, I use Savannah as an example. When we went on the chamber trip to Savannah, one of the cool aspects of their largest park was they had a restaurant in it, and it was just in an old building. And of course, the city doesn't run it; it's an operator. They're the leaseholder, I would assume. But it did a lot to activate the area, and so. Whether it's here, whether it was Bayview, whether it was Wayside in the future, Maritime, I think activating our spaces and not only allowing small businesses to have some success, but also it's just one more amenity, one more asset that is available to the public. I think is a great thing. And so, we don't. I don't know that we have specific plans. We don't have an RFP going out of some kind of food vendor. But what I'd say philosophically is, I think we. As we turn the page in Parks and Rec, I feel like something we can have an open mind about is what are those ways to bring amenities, to bring value to people using our parks, and that could be a partnership of saying, here's a 20 by 20 spot for a food truck, and let someone come in and again, I think it helps the park. I think it helps that small business owner, and helps the user of the park. So I'd love to see those type of opportunities come to fruition in the near future, not only here but at other parks as well. Anything else?
Mayor,
Yeah.
not related to the park, but this Thursday, the city council is voting on the ARPA refunding.
Yep.
Can you explain a little bit about that, and then specifically the projects you all selected in it, as far as why you selected those projects?
Sure. So ARPA funding, obviously, like any other budget item, is approved by the council. And so it was allocated into certain buckets and approved by council. So anytime we were to modify those, we'll have to bring that back. So it might be another item depending on, these are dollars that need to be encumbered by the end of the year. And so we may be coming back a couple other times depending on what happens. And as you know, we're working on things like homeless reduction, low barrier shelter with some of those dollars that are allocated in ARPA. And then a couple of these projects we've just moved around because it might be something that was planned a couple years ago that we aren't going to do. And so that's what you see on Thursday is it's kind of reallocating the buckets of the ARPA funding. The two most notable ones, and I know ones you're referring to, are the deferred maintenance assessment. About $100,000 is what we expect that to cost for our parks. And that, as I told y'all last week, that we're sick of running away from problems finding us. We want to find the problems, and that's the first step in doing that. And it's a big, important step that if we're ever going to have a parks master plan, this is something that needs to be done, in our team's opinion, before you would have a whole citywide parks master plan. This is information you need, right? So that's one. And then the mooring field feasibility study is something we've talked about since I started. Actually, there were dollars allocated. I forget in which bucket specifically, but maybe it was in carry forward. So we've been talking about this since right after I started. And what I've said is for years we've talked about, it's just been mentioned in town from a stormwater resilience or storm resiliency standpoint. and an accessibility to the waterfront standpoint, could that ever happen? Could there be a breakwater out south of the bay somewhere? And would that make sense? Would it not make sense? So this $50,000 is a feasibility study ultimately to accomplish two things. One is, instead of just talking about it at the water cooler, we could have a real what if. And that could include them coming back and saying it's not feasible. So that's number one. Number two is, we know regardless of its feasibility level, we're talking about a significant several $1 million project. If we're talking about a breakwater somewhere out on Pensacola Bay, that's a significant lift. But if we want to say get grant funding for it, we can't just stay at the water cooler. You know, we would have to say, here's the feasibility study, here's some design. We've got to start inching towards, because that's what ends up happening. At the end of the day, grants get funded in terms of their readiness to be funded. And I understand that. If you're at the state or federal level and you've got a finite amount of dollars, you want to make sure those dollars are going to be used. And so it helps you when you have some information and it's not just a pie in the sky idea. So, for a relatively small amount, let's find out if it's feasible or not, and not, again, get it away from the water cooler talk and into, can this happen? And really be a what if behind it. So that's what it would allow. And whether that's a mooring field for boat access to the waterfront, and any kind of resiliency against storms. We know how much damage we see here every time we've had a hurricane down here. Does it help us with that? And those are the things that we're going to look for them to answer.
With the mooring field, is there a specific location you're looking at, or is it anywhere along the city's waterfront?
Yeah. Hypothetically, someone could propose a 2,000-foot one if they wanted. I think that's what we're going to let them answer for us. There's so many things that I'm not smart enough to know, which is how depth affects, some kind of breakwater. You may put it here instead of there. You may make it this long or that long based on a lot of different factors that are above my head. So that's precisely why we're bringing them in, is to say, you tell us, where should it go? How long should it be? What asset would that become? How would it help us in terms of storm preparedness, storm resiliency, all of those types of things. So those are the questions we want answered, and we'll see what they say.
Mayor, a group called Sail Pensacola, and their partners, I guess, in the United Kingdom, came to the TDC last week and asked for and received a pretty good chunk of money for a Sail Pensacola program involving regattas and involving community involvement. Tell us what you may know about that and what discussions the city has had with this group.
So, Sail Pensacola, I've reached out to them intermittently, and they've reached out to me intermittently, so I'm certainly aware of the group. In theory, how this would operate is, we have this catalytic project that is American Magic coming, and I believe the fastest return on investment of all. The jobs are great. The planting our flag as the sailing capital of the United States is amazing, and a once in a lifetime, once in a multi-generation opportunity. But I think the quickest return on investment, honestly, is the compounding impact of becoming this great sailing destination and having these regattas and these events here. So I think if you were to talk to Tim and everybody at Sail Pensacola, they'd tell you, what their goal is to be that liaison, to be able to help make those other regattas, those other races, things that could happen here a reality. I think that's what their goal is, and certainly that's our goal too. If that means that a regatta is looking for a crew, for a location, for infrastructure, it's kind of that middleman to allow these types of events to happen, and for us to realize and enjoy that economic impact. So I don't deal with them, or we don't deal with them on a day-to-day basis. But as we've told them, as we've told American Magic, others that have come through, is if there's assets that we can provide to help provide that impact, we're part of that ecosystem as well. Maybe independent of Sail Pensacola, but we're part of that ecosystem of infrastructure, all those things to help. If you have 90 boats here for a week, and all the owners and all the crew and all that, that's a nice catalytic economic impact for us. And so what's great is I know, and I've talked with Tyson and Terry at American Magic, they're advocates for that as well, and they continue to work. They have a lot of credibility in this space, and so when they say this is a great place to sail, that goes a long way. And so any partners that we have in the community, city, county, TDC, any of those partners that help make that economic realization happen is good for us as a city, and so we'll continue to be part of that.
I got a follow-up related to that. So with the growth, international awareness, Pensacola, American Magic, their team, are you considering accelerating the expansion at the airport? And if so, when will you decide whether you need to go forward now with a bond float or not to bring this in for a landing?
Yeah, so your first question, I was thinking, well, yesterday, if I could start on it yesterday, that's when I'd start on that $90 million terminal. But no, in reality, look, we're still in design right now. And to be fair, at the federal terminal, the FAA terminal grant level that we didn't get any funding in this year, I wouldn't call it a critique, but we just talked about it with the mooring field. The closer you are with a completed design, the more likely you are to get funded, right? If you know that there's some time. So our airport team's working hard and diligently on getting that design completed. It's not fully completed yet. So hypothetically, if we had 90 million show up today, we couldn't start construction today. We still have some design. We were trying to get out in front of that and be anticipatory that we want the day that design's done for us to move as aggressively as possible to get construction going. So we continue to do that, and continue on that front. We're not at a decision point yet of whether we would float it or bond or anything like that. FDOT, we continue to be in conversations with them. We got another $5 million in the legislature right now that we hope will come to fruition. That's a drop in the bucket for the total price tag, but it's real dollars nonetheless. I think my job this fall and obviously into the season, into the spring, next spring, is to get even more aggressive than we were before about this being our number one priority project. I think that we're probably, to your question about do we start, making more, larger financial decisions about how much of that we take on, I think it's probably a little premature for that. I think we would probably give this another run, very aggressively, and get to Washington, D.C. and get to Tallahassee and do everything we can to get as much funded as possible, and then see where we land, probably spring of next year. All right. Anything else? Again, thank you all so much. Thank you to our team, our Parks and Rec team, Public Works, everybody for doing an amazing job behind us here. And if you guys, media, want to get with Jason, he will be your tour guide to where you're allowed to go. And I don't know the answer to that. Only Jason does. So anyway, thank you guys so much for being here.